thank you for joining me. I am Alex Hanna. I'm the athletic director here at Bluffton High School, Bluffton Middle School. As a result of the COVID pandemic, we're having the 2020 Fall Sport Player Parent Meeting digitally. Your coaches, our varsity and junior high coaches, should be in touch with you either digitally or through just a letter here soon to tell you their expectations for the season. Our varsity coaches include Jeff Richards, he's our varsity football coach, Steven Smucker, he's our boys soccer coach, Jared Byers, our girls soccer coach, Mason Roth is our golf coach, Kevin King is our volleyball coach, Brianna Atkins is our cheer coach, and William Tyson is actually our high school and our junior high cross-country coach. Our junior high volleyball coaches are Rachel Diller and Laura Green. Our junior high football head coach is Brad Jones, and our junior high cheer coach is Chase Coons. Our athletic trainer is a guy named John Hicks. Most of you probably know him. Typically at this meeting I give out his cell phone number, but I'm not going to do it here. Our coaches have his cell phone number. If your son or daughter is injured or is experiencing an injury, he can take care of it. The coaches should be able to give you their number. If they can't, have your son or daughter talk to me and I can give them the number. But John is going to be the one for minor injuries. If your son or daughter is bleeding excessively, or you can see a bone, or is unconscious, or anything along those lines, take them to the hospital. Don't wait for John's evaluation. John is the beginning and the end of concussion, so if your son or daughter is having concussion-like symptoms, they should contact John. He's going to establish a baseline for them using impact testing, and then that baseline will determine when your son or daughter is willing or able to come back from the concussion. John will evaluate them over and over again. He evaluates concussions all the time, and he releases the kids. The coaches are going to listen to John. I'm going to listen to John. They're not going to listen to your doctor or to you. They are going to listen to John. John is going to determine when they can return, so keep that in mind. Obviously, with the pandemic, there have been some recommendations, some restrictions and regulations placed on athletics. Athletics have been placed into two categories at the high school level and junior high level, either low or no impact or impact. Low or no contact or contact sports. The non-contact or low contact sports that we have here at Bluffton are tennis, golf, and volleyball. The contact sports are soccer, football, and surprisingly cross country. The contact sports, those high contact sports, are not able to scrimmage this preseason, this fall. So those scrimmages have been suspended. So any scheduled scrimmage that you had on the schedule or you saw on the schedule from your coach in a contact sport, those have been suspended and those will not be played. However, the non-contact or low-contact sports, like I said, golf, actually cheer is part of that too. Golf, cheerleading, tennis, and volleyball, those sports will start play when they are regularly scheduled to start play, and they can scrimmage this preseason. Now the contact sports, football, soccer, and cross country are set to begin in late August with their first games. Our first soccer game against Pettisville, our first girls soccer game against Ottawa, and our first football game against Corey Rawson. Those are set to begin as scheduled, but we just won't have scrimmages. Before your son or daughter can start coming to practice, and practice starts August 1st for some teams and then August 3rd for others, but before your son or daughter may start practice, they need to have a physical, an up-to-date physical on Privet. They haven't done that yet. They need to do it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to our school's website, scroll to the bottom, you'll see a link called Sports Physicals. Click on that link, you'll find instructions and a link to the Privet website. Privet is just an online storage system for the physicals, but those have to be up to date. Now, as a result, again, of the pandemic, there are some restrictions and some regulations that we need to follow. We're going to follow from the Ohio Department of Health and the governor's office. One of those things is having face coverings when athletes and coaches come to the facility. So when athletes come to the facility, they need to be wearing a face mask or some kind of face covering. When kids get here, they're going to get a symptoms and temperature check. After that is completed and they can start participating, they can take the mask off. When kids are actively participating, they can take that mask off, but once they're finished and they're taking water, they got to put, or excuse me, after they're done taking water, they need to put their mask back on. Now, outdoor sports, if they can socially distance and they can spread themselves out, they don't necessarily need to put the mask back on, but as long as they're spread out enough, and our coaches are going to work hard at doing that. But indoor sports, anytime you go inside a facility and not actively participating, your mask has to be on. This includes the gyms and the Ricky Motter Center, which most everybody uses. Athletes should also keep in mind that they will not have access to a drinking fountain. They should bring their own water bottles and water. They shouldn't be sharing anything with each other. Shirts, clothes, cleats, anything. Water bottles, as a matter of fact, they should not be sharing. Locker rooms will be limited, meaning we will have small groups in there for a small amount of time, then they'll be asked to leave. So have your athlete, your son or daughter, ready to practice when they come to practice. Don't expect to come here, change, come out and practice, then go back to the locker room, change into clothes. When athletes get home at the end of the night, when they get home, have them shower immediately, take their clothes off, get them washed. Again, our coaches will conduct symptoms and temperature checks at practice, at the beginning of practice, and kids will be sent home if they have a high temperature or they have symptoms, but also we're asking parents to conduct those symptoms and temperature checks at home. And if your son or daughter is not feeling well, contact the coach and keep them at home. When kids are riding the bus, they are required to wear a mask. If they don't want to wear a mask, they're not going to ride the bus. They got to have a mask on the bus. Athletes, when you get on the bus, try to sit with the same group every time. Now we're going to roll windows down, and we're going to do our best to get air moving through there, but kids need to have a mask on, and they should sit with the same group of people every time. So it's like the lunchroom every day. The first day you sit down at the lunchroom, that's your assigned seat. The same thing applies to the bus. Sit with the same group. Athletes are soccer players. Keep in mind that you're going to go to facilities on the road that won't have a big bench area. It'll be difficult for you to spread out. I'd encourage you to bring a chair that you can sit on and help you spread out. If you're unwilling to do that, you're probably going to end up sitting on the floor, or excuse me, sitting on the ground, and sometimes it's raining. Again, in every sport, practice or games, we're going to do our best to socially distance as far as we can and spread out as much and keep the 6-foot distance between kids. That's not always going to happen, and when that is the case, kids are going to need to make sure they have their masks on. So if your son or daughter needs a mask and they don't have access to one, or you don't have access to one, contact the coach, speak with the coach, and we can get you a mask, okay, or a face covering. Spectators, there are some restrictions placed on spectators. This year, we are not going to offer reserved seats. There will be no reserved seats for any spectators. This is specifically for football and basketball, but those reserved seats will not exist. We are only going to offer general admission. We are going to sell 3 general admission passes to our home crowd. We're going to sell a 10-game adult pass for $45. We're going to sell a 10-game student pass for $25. And again, with that $25 10-game student pass, you'll get a free t-shirt. And for $30, we're going to sell a 10-game senior citizens pass. Those have existed before, but we will not be selling season to passes, and we will not be selling reserved seats. We're going to skip every other row in bleachers, and we're going to ask families to spread out. Obviously, if you've been living in a home with the same group of people and you come to the game, you guys can sit next to each other, but we're asking you to spread out from other families, practice some social distancing, and respect other people's health. Again, if there are some more restrictions placed on our spectators, and I don't know if there will or won't be, but if there are, we are exploring a potential live streaming. Digitally, you can watch the games live. I can't promise that's going to happen, but we are exploring that issue. Hopefully, there's no restrictions placed on spectators, and there's not a limit to the number of spectators we have in here, or we're not allowed to have spectators. If we're allowed to have spectators, and there's some restrictions placed on it, we'll look at some live streaming. I can't promise that'll be the case, but that's something we are exploring. After games, we're asking that people, safely and quickly exit the facilities. Historically here at Bluffton, one of our favorite pastimes is to congregate on the court or on the field immediately after the game. We're asking people to leave the facility. Students who decided to attend Bluffton Middle School or High School online, take the online option, they're still able to play sports, but their grades will be monitored, and at the end of the first quarter, if they're not passing 5 credits or they're failing more than 2 classes or they don't have a GPA of higher than 1.0, they will not be eligible to participate in athletics the second quarter. So keep that in mind. Last spring, we waived the scholastic eligibility. By we, I mean the Ohio High School Athletic Association and Bluffton Athletic Department waived the scholastic eligibility requirement. That will not be the case this fall. Kids' grades will be monitored. Kids coming to school, you need to make sure you're at school by 10:30 or you will not be able to participate. Now back to regular issues we have with athletics. We're asking people to use social media responsibly. Social media sites are not an opportunity to complain about the coach. If your son or daughter is having an issue with the coach, go and talk to the coach. We encourage kids to have tough conversations with their coach. The biggest complaint or the biggest issue we have with parents want to talk to the coaches on behalf of the kid. Encourage your son or daughter to go and talk to the coach. They're only going to grow. It's only going to make tough conversations easier for them as they get older. And I think you'll discover, many of you know, that you're happier if you are willing to have a difficult conversation. And oftentimes people who are willing to have difficult conversations are paid more than people who are unwilling to have those conversations. So as the growth of your son or daughter, encourage the growth of your son or daughter, we are encouraging them to have difficult conversations with the coach. And obviously, this should be done privately and with some decorum. Screaming at the coach from the bleachers or from the sidelines is not a difficult conversation. Talking to the coach, hey coach, can I talk to you after practice, before practice? I have an issue, can we talk about it? That is only going to help your son or daughter grow. Allowing them to try this stuff and succeed is only going to help. And I keep saying that. You know, our coaches care about your son and daughter. Son and daughters. They care about the kids. They would not be here if they didn't. They care about them. They want to see them succeed. They want to see them grow. They want to see what kind of person they can become. And they want to help your son or daughter become the best version of themselves that they can be. I said this last fall, I'm going to say it again. How do you spell love? T-I-M-E. And those coaches put a bunch of time into helping your son or daughter, encourage your son or daughter to contact the coach if they have an issue. Thank you for joining me at our 2020 Fall Sports Player Parent Meeting.